was all because of the lead poisoning in the water. They increased the spices, not to show off around the table, but because they needed to be able to taste the food. That's my theory.
That's very interesting.
Yes.
Might be wrong, but that's my theory. I'm going to stick to it.
So, where does all of this come from? All these, what's your greatest cooking influence? I mean, do you have like this childhood comfort food, or how did you start?
How did I start, or who attracted me? Is that the question? What inspired me?
Yes.
Who inspired me? Who? My first ever inspiration, I was working in Monte Carlo. I was aged 18. I was a commis chef, the only English chef out of 68 French chefs. That's not easy.
68?
68 French and Italian and Swiss chefs. I was the only English chef. Now back then, I'm talking when I was 18, that's 20 years ago. Don't laugh. Plus VAT. many years ago. They didn't particularly like the English, and I can always remember I was one English boy in all these French chefs trying to learn, trying to do my best, and I can remember after, I think it's day 6, he was a Swiss executive chef, and he had a very tall hat, very long apron, knowing that you can't work with a tall hat and you can't work with a long apron. That's the idea. You know he's the exec chef. And he had a pointed beard, and his eyebrows were pointed. His hat came to here, looked very stern, and his eyebrows came over his hat, like the hat was resting on his eyebrows. And I'm sure, I never saw him without a hat, but I'm sure he had horns underneath his hat. And this pointy beard and this pointy moustache, very archetypal Swiss French chef. On day 6, he never spoke to me, and I was trying to get along, and he said, "Coxon," I said, "Oui, chef," very nervously, and I went over to him, and he stood there, and he said, with his pointy beard, "What are you doing in my industry?" "What am I doing in your industry?" "Trying to learn, chef." "But you are English." "Yes, chef. You should not be in my industry." I said, "What should I be, chef?" "You're English, a policeman." "Yes, chef." And I went away, and I just had to battle that type of arrogance, ignorance, stupidity, call it what you want, and I had to work twice as hard as anybody else, and I managed to achieve, for the first time in the history of this hotel, normally took a commis 1 year to do a commisship, then you become a commis 2. I achieved that in 6 months. I then had a French commis under me.
Wow.
So I said to the French commis, "What are you doing in my industry?" Only joking, I didn't. I wouldn't put people through that. But it was a tough time. It was tough. I was learning French as well. And I can always remember my first ever week, this executive sous chef sent me for something in the downstairs kitchen, because there were 7 restaurants. We had a Michelin star restaurant, the foie gras, the folie, banqueting, we had all kinds of things, and I covered the whole area in 4 years.
Wow.
But the first week he sent me down to the kitchen for something downstairs into the refrigeration. So I have to take a lift from the restaurant downstairs, go across the banqueting kitchens and go into the fridge. All the time with this word that he'd asked me for in my head. Hoping, and I don't know why, hoping that I'd open the fridge door, and there it was in big writing. I walked in the fridge, there's nothing with writing on it whatsoever. I stood there for half an hour just looking at the things that could have represented this word, and I think I got lost there. Then I went out and asked the butcher, who was a Filipino, totally mad. He'd put his own arm through the machine just for a laugh. He was totally mad. And I'd ask him what this. I don't know. He's Filipino. What did he know? So I was gone for hours and hours. I think they sent a search party out to find me, shivering in the fridge, trying to find the ingredient. But yeah, it's all a learning curve, and that's what it's about. But I battled against all the odds, and I came out, and it was a very nice experience. Many years later, having done 4 years in Monte Carlo under French chefs, to go back, having gone through a whole career of development, chef de partie, sous chef, different restaurants, different hotels, different parts of the world, and eventually I went back to France as executive chef in the largest four-star hotel in Europe. And I had 68 of my own chefs under me. And I was the one walking around with the big hat and the apron.
Wow.
But without the whiskers. But I also ensured that the method that I was brought up in, which is fairly challenging, wasn't my method of leadership in my own restaurant. And I used to see the commis come in and they'd be working and I would walk past them. And there's one French commis in particular, and I'd walk past through the kitchen, watching, seeing, saying hello, whatever it may be, and he'd flinch. And I would carry on walking, and I'd walk back again, and he'd flinch. And I'd walk back again, and he'd flinch. And I said to the sous chef, I said, does he do that when you walk past him? He said, no, chef. I said, watch. And I walked past him, he'd flinch. So I got my sous chef and I went over to him and said, are you okay? He said, oui, chef. I said, why do you flinch every time I walk by? I thought you was going to hit me, chef. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I said, why would I hit you? Why would I know? Would I hit you? Because my last chef did.
Oh.
Yeah. And that is sad. That is sad. And I tried to change that attitude, that you lead from the front, you motivate with passion, you motivate. The cooking industry, of course, is business. It's a science, it's artistry, it's control, it's an organisation, and it's leadership, and you lead from the front, and you don't lead from bullying people and hitting people. So I just made that straight from the outset. Lead by positive motivation.
What would be your best cooking tip for a novice?
Don't be afraid.
Be afraid?
No. Don't be afraid. I'm behind you. I'm watching you. Don't be afraid. No, don't be afraid of making mistakes. Don't be afraid of trying. Don't be afraid of doing something. Don't let your initial aim and objective of cooking something put you off from being afraid of not attaining the end product. And a lot of recipes are wrong. And I say that, my recipes were probably wrong. They were right at the time, using the ingredients that I used, the ingredients that were then trialled on a different day, the ingredients in that country at that particular year. But you take that recipe, then you take it and you use the same recipe 3 weeks' time, 2 months' time, 3 years' time. It'll have changed because the ingredients will have changed. And therefore the flavours will have changed. Now, that's just in one country. You then spread that around and send recipes to Mexico, you send recipes to Nigeria, send recipes. Ingredients have all changed. Is it the same recipe? Well, not really, no. And what I'm doing right now is ensuring that all the guys who've got the recipes, I'm working with them, the team, please, every time we get to stages, check with me. Because it's about looking and seeing what's not going right with the product. The recipe's just a guide. It's just a guide. Sets you on some kind of track towards an end product. But understanding what's going on with the scientific element to how ingredients are changing, whether it's timing of cooking, temperature of cooking, marinating, whatever it may be, it's all about understanding